Hi everyone, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening wherever you are. I'm your host, Dr. Heather Shah, and on behalf of Colwas, I would like to welcome all of you to this webinar. Thank you very much for joining us. Today we have very interesting session, and I'm really honored to welcome and introduce our distinguished guest speaker, who is going to talk about what is mediation, multiple and serial mediation, and moderation. It is very important to understand and learn the analysis and its process. So you will get the proper orientation and understanding in this session. So stay tuned because an amazing stuff are coming ahead in this session. So before we start, I would like to thank the Kalwas for arranging such enlightenment sessions and their support and providing such a wonderful platform. The aim of the Kalwas is to give you the opportunity to interact with world-renowned speakers, teachers, authors, researchers, experts, and professionals to share their views, experiences, and tips which will create and will enable you to learn new things and develop yourself in order to grow individually as well as to contribute to the world at large. As our slogan is come, learn, and share knowledge. So today we have very special guest, a mentor to me, a leading researcher, expert, a great human being who is creating impact on the world and is always ready to share his knowledge on different platforms and to contribute and to guide us in research activities. So let me introduce him formally. Today we have the Dr. Mostafa Rasoolimanesh. He is a associate professor and director of Center for Research and Innovation Tourism and head of research for the Faculty of Social Sciences and Leisure Management in Taylor's University. His research interest area contains sustainable tourism, heritage tourism, community participation, residents' perception, and urban sustainability. Moreover, he has used advanced quantitative analysis such as partial least square structure equation modeling in most of his papers. He has published more than 90 articles in referred journals, including high impact journals such as Tourism Management, Journal of Travel Research, Journal of Sustainable Tourism, International Journal of Contemporary Hospitality Management, Journal of Cleaner Production, and International Journal of Tourism Research, and many more others. Dr. Mustafa is an editorial board member of more than 10 reputed tourism and hospitality journals, and he serves as the associate editor of Journal of Hospitality and Tourism Management, special issue editor of Journal of Hospitality and Tourism Technology, and regional editor Asia of International Journal of Tourism Policy. So welcome to Kalwa's platform, and thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Mustafa. It's pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you very much, Dr. Haidar Shah, for inviting me for this session to
Thank
share
you very much.
something about mediation and moderation.
Yeah.
Hopefully, your participant enjoy from this session.
Inshallah. And just a soft reminder to our audience that before we get started, let me just tell you the format about this session. Dr. Mustafa will be presenting for 40 to 5 minutes, and then he would leave time to in the end for you to ask questions, which can you ask through the comment section, or you can ask through our different social media as well as through our website. So over to you, Dr. Mustafa. You can start, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your kind introduction. If I'm not sure if I can stop and present in 40 minutes, 45 minutes, but when we reach to 40 minutes, please remind me so I can
Sure.
wrap up my presentation and discussion.
Sure.
Okay, let me share my screen. Um,
Yes, sir.
okay. Okay, you can see my screen, right?
Yes, Prof. It's visible.
Okay, let me put in presentation mode so it's clearer for others. Okay, this session actually we are supposed to discuss about mediation and moderation analysis. And as Dr. Aidar Shah mentioned, I'm associate professor in the Center for Research and Innovation in Tourism. I have published several papers addition to my area in tourism on methodology. And recently, we have published a paper on mediation analysis in the Journal of Hospitality and Tourism Management. Later in my presentation, I will refer to this paper. And we have a paper under review for Journal of International Journal of Contemporary Hospitality Management, and hopefully this paper will be published soon. So we receive conditional acceptance for this paper for moderation analysis, and I think these two papers can be good guideline for researcher to know about mediation and moderation, basic concept and the fundamental understanding of mediation and moderation, and different component for analysis. I also have a YouTube channel with my name. I have a good number of videos in this channel related to quantitative research method, mixed method, publication, and partial least squares structural equation modeling. So if you are interested, you can subscribe to this channel, and you can enjoy watching those video and the new video that I will upload soon on different topics of quantitative research method. Okay, for today, mediation analysis. Most of the time there is a confusion between mediator and moderator, or mediation analysis and moderation analysis. So I will try to explain briefly about this concept. First, I will start with mediation. Mediation is a variable actually that we include between two main variable in our framework: independent variable or exogenous variable, and dependent variable or endogenous variable. So mediators come between these two variables to transfer effect of IV to DV. So when we have mediator, it means mediator can explain the mechanism of effect of IV to DV. It means the effect of IV to DV, independent variable to dependent variable, is not a simple effect, is not only a direct effect of IV to DV. But this effect also go through some other variables, that these variables can be called mediator, right? So mediator explain the mechanism between IV and DV. If you review different study in different field, in psychology, in behavioral science, and different discipline under social science, you can find the mediation and as one of the actually concept and variable that in many of study has been applied, and can explain the process and mechanism of effect of IV and to DV, and can help for a theoretical advancement. So the concept of mediation is important concept in different social science disciplines. So as I explained, when we have a simple relationship between IV and DV, so it's understandable, and we can justify this effect of IV to DV based on some theory and literature. But when we have complex effect of IV to DV, it means the effect is not simply presented by a direct relationship and a direct effect for IV and DV. So we need to have some variable to explain clearly the mechanism of effect of IV and DV. So it's the time that mediators come to picture, and we can see how this effect is transferred, right? Here is one of our paper that we published in 2020. Actually, this paper was issued in 2021. And in this paper, uh, we discuss mediation role of resident perception between some antecedent and support for tourism development. Actually, I put this paper because for when we have mediation variable, and we want to explain the mechanism of this effect, the first important things that we need to consider is hypothesis development for mediator. I put this paper here to explain, later I will explain a bit more, to explain how we can hypothesize mediator in first step for mediation analysis. This is the framework that we have for this paper. Here you can see resident perception is between play roles actually between these antecedent community attachment, environmental attitude, cultural attitude, and economic gain and involvement, and support for tourism development. So when we put this variable between these antecedent and dependent variable support for tourism development, it means the effect of antecedent uh, mm, actually is not only direct effect to dependent variable. Part of this effect transferred through resident perception. So resident perception here can play mediation role and can transfer some part of effect of IV to DB, right? So this is a basic understanding and meaning of mediator. So when we say mediator, it means there is a variable, that this variable can explain the mechanism of effect of IV to DB, like this example that we have for this paper. This is a paper that recently we published. It's very recent, I think 1 month ago, published in Journal of Hospitality and Tourism Management. In this paper, actually, we review about 536 papers published between 2016 and 2020 in top-tier tourism and hospitality journals. And by reviewing these 500 plus papers, we identify different misconception as misunderstanding for mediation analysis. And at the end, we provided a clear and simple guideline for different component of mediation analysis. When we have a mediator, which part we need to consider. So this paper can be a good guideline for you to follow if you have mediator in your framework and you plan to analyze mediator in your study. This paper still is open access. I think is by middle of September is open access, and you can download freely. And if you need this paper, you can contact me and I will send a copy of this paper to you. So my discussion today for mediation analysis mostly is based on this paper that we published recently. Okay, for mediation analysis, there are a few steps that we have to consider. And actually in this paper, we discuss these different steps and important components. First thing is hypothesis development for mediator. When we have mediator in our framework, similar to other relationship in quantitative research. So when we have a quantitative research, we hypothesize a direct relationship between IVs and DV, right? So to assess relationship between ID and DV, we need to hypothesize first this relationship in literature review. So in literature review, we need to discuss that why community attachment influence support for tourism development, right? Why attitude influence intention to purchase some product, right? So for a direct relationship, we have to hypothesize this relationship. To hypothesize this relationship, direct relationship, we need to have theory and literature. So, we cannot only hypothesize the relationship between IV and DV based on literature. We need to have established theory to support this relationship. This is the same for mediation variable and mediation effect, right? So when we have a mediator M between IV and DV, so this mediation relationship, mediation relationship should be hypothesized, similar to direct effect. This mediation effect should be hypothesized. We have in the literature we have two methods, two different approaches for hypothesizing mediator based on theory. We need to have, for mediation effect, we need to have theoretical support, right? There are two different approaches in literature for supporting mediation effect by theory. First is segmentation approach. In segmentation approach, when you want to develop mediation hypothesis, when you go to literature, sometimes you cannot find the same study before that hypothesized this mediator and presented the theory to support this mediation effect. So what we need to do in this situation, if you go to literature and you cannot find the exactly same study to support this mediation effect by theory, you can apply these two approaches to support theoretically the mediation effect. First is segmentation approach. Segmentation approach refer to supporting by theory two different segments. You need to have theoretical support for effect of X to M. So X is your independent variable, M is your mediator, and Y is your dependent variable. So for effect of X to M, you need to have theory to support this effect, and also for effect of M to Y. So when we have two separate theory, even sometimes we can have one theory but support these two different segments, right? So when you support these two different segments, X to M and M to Y, by one or two, more than one theories, so this approach, based on this approach, segmentation approach, you can justify mediation effect, right? This is one approach for theoretical support. Find theoretical support for mediation hypothesis. Another one is transmittal approach. For this transmittal approach means you have some theory that explain this transmission, explain this transferring effect, effect of IV to DV through mediator. You can find a theory that explains this transmission, right? In this case, you need to find and you need to have sequential theories. Sequential theories, for example, value, attitude, behavior theory. Value, attitude, behavior theory is a theory with three layers, and explain value influence attitude, and attitude influence behavior, right? So for this value, attitude, behavior, you have these three layers. So if in your study you have some variable that can be under value, and some variable under attitude, and some variable under behavior, this value, attitude, behavior theory can justify theoretically this mediation effect. So if we have this sequential theory, the approach that we apply to support mediation hypothesis based on theory will be transmittal approach. And in this case, we will have sequential theories. If I go back to our paper here, for mediation role of resident perception between antecedent and support for tourism, here we apply two different theories to write mediation hypothesis. These two theory, first one, social exchange theory, support this relationship between resident perception and support. And Weber theory explain and justify relationship between antecedent, for example, community attachment, and resident perception. So we had two different theories to support these two segments. So in this case, we apply this segmentation approach to support the mediation hypothesis. So don't forget, similar to direct effect, for mediation, we must have theoretical support for mediation hypothesis. Sometime I reviewed actually for different journal, and sometime I received a paper for review that include mediation, but they didn't provide theoretical support for mediation hypothesis. So this can be a big problem in the paper, and sometimes even we cannot find the mediation hypothesis. Only in analysis stage they try to assess mediator. But if we need to have mediator, we must include the mediation hypothesis, and we have to support mediation hypothesis using theory. We have different types of mediation. Simple mediation, so only we have one mediator between IB and DV, and multiple mediation, we have more than one mediator. For example, in this example, we have M and W between X and Y, so we have parallel mediators. But here, for second example, for D, we have M and W, and M and W are serial mediators. So the effect of X to M, and M to W, and W to Y. So, for example, for this serial mediator, how we can write the mediation hypothesis? Okay, if you have some sequential theory that support effect of X to M, M to W, and W to Y, okay, you can go ahead and apply this. But it's difficult to find a sequential theory with different layers. So what we need to do for this serial mediator, if we want to hypothesize effect of M and W together between X and Y, and we want to hypothesize that M and W together mediate relationship between X and Y. So you need to have theoretical support for X to M, M to W, and W to Y using segmentation approach. So it doesn't matter your mediation hypothesis is simple mediation or multiple mediation. You need to have theoretical support for hypothesizing mediator. Here you can see a mathematical equation for serial mediation and for parallel mediation and for serial mediation. And actually here for A1, A3, B2 can be representative for indirect effect of serial mediation when we include M and W between X and Y, and we believe the effect of X to Y go through M and W together. Okay, so this is a basic understanding for hypothesizing mediator. But for assessment of mediator, we have different tests for assessment of mediator. For example, here McKinnon et al. 2002 review 14 different tests for assessment of mediation, and they categorize these 14 tests under 3 categories. First group include causal steps assessment. This causal steps assessment actually is represented by one of them famous and well-known causal steps test. So under causal step we have other tests, but Baron and Kenny is the most famous and well-known test under this category. Second group actually discuss differences between direct coefficient, direct effect before mediation and after including mediation. And third group actually focus on a product of coefficient. For the third group, we assess indirect effect of IV to DV. So we assess significance of product of coefficient A and B. So A times B, A multiplied B is indirect effect. So this product of coefficient, we assess significance of this product of coefficient to test mediator. So we have these 3 categories. This is Baron and Kenny. I'm not going through. Baron and Kenny actually now is not acceptable approach, and many recent study by Hayes, Preacher, and their colleagues, and many more simulation study actually confirmed that Baron and Kenny has very low power, because we don't test significance of anything in Baron and Kenny approach. Baron and Kenny approach only we check some steps. Effect of IV to DV is significant or not. If it's significant before inclusion of mediator, we test effect of IV to M, M to DV, and also check direct effect is significant or not. So we'll become partial or full mediator. So we don't have any test for using Baron and Kenny. So Baron and Kenny is not acceptable anymore, and there are many different critics for this method. The best approach for assessment of mediator is product of coefficient, this product term AB. So this AB is called the indirect effect. This AB is called indirect effect. So there are many different approaches under this, many different tests under this group to assess significance of AB, significance of indirect effect, right? So the best one is assessment of significance of AB, indirect effect, product of coefficient, based on different studies by Hayes, Preacher, and others. But under this category, product of coefficient, also we have many different tests, right? So to assess significance of this indirect effect or product of coefficient, for example, we have delta methods. One of the delta methods is the Sobel test. You may hear about this test. And also we have percentile and bias corrected bootstrapping. We have distribution of product, Monte Carlo, confidence interval, joint significance. So we have different methods under this category for assessment of product of coefficient, significance of indirect effect or product of coefficient. But also for different tests, for example, here is some example of delta method, right? Delta method, Sobel test is one of them. Arian test, Goodman test. So you can see formula is different. In Hayes and Schwarzkopf study 2013, they also did some simulation, and they found also Sobel test, and this category of test for significance of indirect effect is very low power test, right? So under three categories to assess mediator, causal steps, product of coefficient, and difference between direct effect. So product of coefficient is the best, but also for product of coefficient, we need to find suitable test to assess significance of this indirect effect. Delta methods group, including Sobel test, is very low power, so is not acceptable based on this study for assessment of significance of indirect effect. What is the best? The best one is a percentile and bias corrected bootstrapping. So we have to apply bootstrapping resampling for significance of indirect effect. Why? Because actually this term is product of coefficient term is a non-parametric term. So this non-parametric term, to assess significance of this non-parametric test term, we have to apply non-parametric test. And Sobel test and this group of tests, actually they are not non-parametric tests, they are parametric, right? So they have low power for significance of assessment of significance of indirect effect. So I have seen some study that combine Sobel test and Baron and Kenny, and they think they can improve the quality by combining these two methods. Actually, these two methods are two different methods. One is under causal step, and one is under product of coefficient, right? Indirect effect. But both tests have low power. So by combining two low power tests, we cannot get high power, right? So it's not the correct way to combine these unacceptable tests to reach to an acceptable test for mediation. So for mediation, you have to go for this bootstrapping, percentile and bias corrected bootstrapping using product of coefficient approach. For interpretation, so this is the Zhou diagram, and for interpretation of result of mediation is one of the best. If you look at this diagram, you can see here we have AB, indirect effect. So it's significant or not. If it's not significant, means we don't have mediator, right? But if it's significant, we can discuss based on direct effect. Direct effect after including mediator, right? Direct effect means this one, right? After including mediator, right? Okay. If direct effect is significant, If direct effect is not significant, okay, we have only mediator and we don't have direct effect. We don't talk about full and partial, right? We don't talk about full and partial. You can refer to our paper. We discuss based on literature why we cannot say full and partial, right? But if we have significant direct effect after inclusion, we can discuss based on A times B times C. So we can discuss based on this term. If this term is positive, means the sign of AB, indirect effect, and the sign of C, direct effect after inclusion of mediator, is same, identical. It means this mediation is complementary. So these two paths complement each other, direct and indirect effect. But if the sign is negative, means AB is positive, C is negative, or vice versa, AB is negative, C is positive. So we have two different signs for direct and indirect effect. So we can say these two are competitive mediation, right? So we have complementary mediation and competitive mediation based on sign of A, B, and C. Okay, if you go to our paper, we provided a guideline at the end. There is a table that you can see different steps of mediation analysis. We also suggested to apply VAF, right? But actually not for full and partial mediation, because full and partial mediation is not meaningful for mediation analysis, but just to compare indirect and direct effect. Because when we have mediator, for example, especially for complementary mediator, that both are significant, A, B, indirect effect, and C, direct effect. So we want to know most of effect go through direct or indirect. So it's important to know for our discussion and sometimes for providing managerial implication and discuss how the effect of IV transfer to DV. Okay, so this is for moderation. For mediation, okay. For moderation, should be faster. For moderation, actually, the concept of moderation is different. This is the paper that we were working for a long time, and it's the final stage, and hopefully this will be accepted soon. So in this paper, we provided a critical review of moderation analysis, and we actually provided a robust guideline for hypothesizing and assessment of moderator. But moderator is different with mediator. Mediator comes with between IV and DV, right? But moderator refers to a situation that relationship between IV and DV, relationship between IV and DV depends on the value of third variable, right? Depends on the value of third variable that we call this third variable moderator. For example, effect of IV to DV, attitude to intention to purchase a product, is different for male and female. So the effect of IV to DV is different for two group of respondent, for two value of moderator. We have big company and small companies, right? So the value of effect of antecedent on performance is different for big company, large company, and small company. We have effect of community attachment to support for tourism. This effect is different based on level of involvement. So respondent, resident with high level of involvement, this effect is different for with respondent and resident with low level of involvement. So moderation is different for effect of IV to DV is different for different levels of moderator. So this is the concept of moderation. Actually, many different theories in different disciplines under social science is very important to identify moderator, and the theory can be changed, and we can advance theory based on moderator. We published a few papers considering moderator in different contexts, and when we apply, for example, we published a paper 2017, and we assess the effect of some antecedent on resident on support for tourism development, right? But we compare the effect based on between urban resident and rural resident, and we confirm that this effect can change based on concept of urban and rural, right? Or some actually the other moderator that can be applied in our research. So we can see heterogeneity for the effect of IV to DV based on level of moderator. So moderator can change our understanding about theory, right? Okay, to understand better the mechanism underlying this effect. So this effect can be changed and can be heterogeneous for based on a different level of moderator. For moderator, we in this paper actually, and today I will try to very briefly, quickly cover this concept. We cover hypothesis development for moderator and theoretical support, choosing between multi-group analysis and interaction effect for moderator, two main approach for assessment of moderator, and the different steps for interaction effect and multi-group analysis. So first, like direct effect, like similar to mediator that I explained, always we need to have theoretical support for moderation hypothesis. First, we need to hypothesize, and we need to have theoretical support. For example, in this paper, we compare, in the context of heritage tourism, we compare some influencing factors on resident perception and attitude between people who are living in heritage site or people who are living far from heritage site, outside of heritage site. So we justify based on theory difference between these effects. So here you can see some hypotheses. For example, environmental attitude is stronger, but for the effect. So here we had some hypothesis for t-test. The effect of environmental attitude on resident perception is stronger for those who living within vicinity of heritage site. So we compare this effect between these two groups of people living in within heritage site and far from heritage site, right? So this is the way that we can write moderation hypothesis. So moderation hypothesis, regardless of multi-group analysis or interaction effect, these two approach are for testing and evaluation of moderator, not for moderation hypothesis. For moderation hypothesis, always we refer to difference between effect for two groups. So it's not recommended to write a variable moderates relationship between ID and DV. This is not good way of writing moderating hypothesis. For moderating hypothesis, we can identify, okay, the effect of ID to DV is stronger or weaker for this group of people, for high level of involvement, for high level of social interaction compared to low level, right? Is higher for, stronger for male compared to female. So here you can see our moderation hypothesis is one tail, because here we identify one effect is stronger than other effect. This is another paper, but here you can see there is a significant difference for the effect of enthusiasm toward a destination on loyalty between male and female, right? There is a significant difference for the effect of attention toward destination on loyalty between male and female. So here, only based on theory and literature, we could support significant difference between effect of IV to DV between male and female. But based on literature and based on theory, we don't know this effect is stronger for male or for female. So here we have two-tail hypothesis, two-tail moderation hypothesis. But the most important things, regardless of the method that we apply, is interaction effect or multi-group analysis, we have to write hypothesis, and hypothesis refer to difference between effect of IV to DV for two levels of moderation. Okay, choosing between, so we have two main groups, two main approaches for assessment of moderation. Is the multi-group analysis and the interaction effect, creating interaction effect. So multi-group analysis actually is applied when we have categorical variable for two or more than two groups, but the interaction effect is applied when our moderator is continuous variable and or categorical variable with the two groups. Actually, we can apply multi-group analysis for continuous moderator. So we need to split continuous moderator to two groups, but is not recommended in the literature, because when we split to two different groups, we miss some part of information, so the result won't be accurate result. For interaction effect, first method, we have different approach to create interaction effect. This is a product indicator approach, and for product indicator approach, for example, here we have exogenous variable and we have moderator. This is interaction term, so we multiply each item of ID to item of DV. So you have you can see x1 m1, x1 m2, x2 m1, and x2 m2. So interaction construct will have 4 items. 2 plus 2 multiply 2. 2 times 2 will be 4. Right. Another approach is two-stage approach. So in two-stage approach, actually we calculate the score of latent variable and multiply a score of latent variable, and we create interaction term. Also, we have two other approach: hybrid approach and orthogonalization approach. So, but these two are most famous approach. Here we discuss. This is from our paper. So hopefully this paper is published and you can read the. When we have observed variable, doesn't matter, we apply SEM-based or regression-based methods. But if we have latent variable, reflective formative construct, latent variable, So it's recommended to apply SEM, not regression based, because if we apply regression based, we ignore measurement error. So when we have when we want to create interaction effect in SEM-based approach, if we one of the moderator or independent variable, because interaction effect is moderator multiply independent variable. So if one of these variable is formative, we have to apply to a stage, because if one of this is formative, so we cannot simply multiply items of this one to item of the moderator, if for example moderator is formative. But if both are reflective, so we can use product indicator approach, orthogonalization approach, and two-stage approach. Two-stage approach, we can get higher statistical power, but orthogonalizing approach, we can get higher estimation accuracy. So two-stage product indicator approach and also orthogonalizing approach actually now is provided in some software like Smart PLS, VAR PLS, if you apply PLS. So you can choose these different methods. So this is formula for interaction effect. When we have interaction effect, we can rearrange this formula for interaction effect. And here is rational that why when we apply interaction effect, we compare slope of relationship or effect of IV to DV for two different levels of moderator. For example, here is simplified method for simplified formula for standardized value. For example, okay, this formula can be converted to this. So for X, we have B1 plus B3 times moderator, value of moderator. So if we have a standardized value for moderator, so mean value is 0, right? So Y will be B0 plus error plus B1X. So effect of X or slope of this line between X and Y will be B1. But for mean plus 1 standard deviation means higher level of moderator, right? So will be B0 plus B2. So this is intercept, but a coefficient for X will be B1 plus B3, right? So M will be 1, B1 plus B3. So the slope is B1 plus B3. The coefficient is interaction effect is B3. So it's B1 plus B3. But for Y, when we have mean minus 1 standard deviation, so this will be, the slope will be B1 minus B3. So you can see the coefficient for X, for high level of moderator is B1 plus B3, and for low level of moderator is B1 minus B3. So here you can see the slope for these two lines. So this is for high level of moderator. So it's stronger. So this effect is stronger for high level of moderator compared to low level. So if the difference between these two is significant difference, means this moderator, this effect of IV to DV is significantly different for high level and low level of moderator. So it means this effect change significantly for high and low level of moderator. So this is another way to understand the interaction effect. But actually, when we apply interaction effect, we assess significance of interaction effect. If interaction effect is significant, so it means moderator is significant moderator. Sometimes literature recommend to report effect size, but actually also some literature mentioned that effect size is not necessary for assessment of moderator, and only based on significance of interaction effect we can conclude the significance of moderator. Another approach is multi-group analysis. In multi-group analysis, actually, instead of creating interaction effect, we compare effect of IV to DV between two different groups. So we split data to two groups, and for high and low level of moderator, for gender, male and female, for different countries, data from different countries. So we have data for two different groups, and we compare path coefficient for these two groups. So first one, this relationship between X and Y for group 1. Second one is relationship between X and Y for group 2. So we compare these two. The concept is exactly same with interaction effect. So we compare these two, B1 plus B1 minus B2. And if B1 minus B2 is significant, means the effect of IV to DV is significantly different for two groups. It means moderator is significant, right? So only the approach is different. There are at least 3 approach and a few more for multi-group analysis. One is parametric approach. Here I put for especially PLS. One is actually there are some non-parametric approach, and for MGA, because the nature of this difference B1 minus B2 is non-parametric nature, we have to apply non-parametric test, right? So it's recommended to apply non-parametric test for assessing, for evaluation of difference between path coefficient in multi-group analysis. So in PLS, we have this permutation test and also non-parametric test introduced by Hensler 2007. So we can apply this non-parametric test, but also parametric test is available, especially when we have covariance space, when we apply covariance space. This is the formula for parametric test, but very important things for MGA is testing invariance or invariance testing. Invariance testing or measurement invariance testing is a requirement for MGA. Why? Because before comparing path coefficient, we have to make sure that measurement model of two groups, measurement model for two groups are invariant, are identical. Because if measurement model are different variant, so it means when we compare two paths, we don't know the difference between two paths come from measurement model or come from a structural model. So we need to make sure, we need to test actually measurement invariance before going to testing difference between paths. There are different methods for measurement invariance. Metrics invariance, actually we apply more in covariance space SEM. For this measurement, for this metric invariance, we compare factor loading between two groups. So at least 50% of factor loading for two groups should be invariant, right? Should be identical. And we can, if we have 50%, we can conclude partial measurement invariance. partial metric measurement invariance. But for PLS, if we want to apply metric invariance, is better to compare weight, not loading, and at least 50%. But actually, this come under metric invariance and is not suitable for non-parametric method. Here, Hensler suggested for 2015, they suggested this MECOM measurement invariance for composite model. And this measurement invariance for composite model, they suggested the configural invariance, compositional invariance, and equal mean and the variance. So at least we have to fulfill this configural invariance and compositional invariance to get partial measurement invariance. So it's requirement for multi-group analysis. But if we get full measurement invariance by third step, equality of mean and variance, so we can pool our data. We can combine our data from two groups. If only we get partial measurement invariance, it's not possible to combine data. So we have to run model for assessment of measurement model and structural model for two different groups separately, and we can run measure MGA to check to compare path coefficient. Here I put two tables from my papers to see how we can report for variance-based SEM, how we can report configural invariance, compositional invariance, and the equal mean and variance. And this is the way that we can report hypotheses. Thank you very much. Yeah, I guess it's 1 hour.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Mostafa. I loved the way you explain and the way you were presenting. I was just wishing that I could know you before I could start my study and your papers by that time, because we learned by very difficult ways by searching for the papers and try to understand it. And I'm very glad our audience, they are very glad that you have given your own papers for reference purpose. It's very easy to understand as well, because I could see the comment that they are liking a lot the way you presented and the way you shared your these papers.
Thank
What
you.
I like is a lot is the what they say that the researcher, they always talk by references. So each and every content was so powerful in your slides that it was backed by references. And I could see in terms of the examiner, when we are in the PhD panel, we always ask for the references. How can you claim like that? How can you say like that? And you are full of the justification and full of the references. Wonderful, Dr. Mustafa. Very wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I would
happy.
definitely,
Yeah.
I
Yes.
would definitely say that 70% of the question you have already addressed in your content,
Okay.
because it was so powerful. But still, we have a question from the people. They want your opinion on that because they are at different stages in the analysis. So I start with the first question. Just quickly, can you just, the question is, sir, please guide us. What is the practical explanation for partial and full mediation? Yes, please.
As I explained, actually, the partial and full mediation is for when we apply Baron and Kinney approach.
Yes.
The concept of partial and full mediation is meaningful. But when we go for other approaches that at the moment is actually more acceptable for assessment of mediation, we no longer talk about full and partial mediation. But the concept come, okay, based on Baron and Kinney. When we say full mediation means one mediator can fully transfer the effect of IV to DV. But when we say partial, it means the effect of IV to DV, part of effect actually go through mediator to transfer to DV. So this is the concept of partial and full. But actually, the reason that recent literature said we cannot talk about full and partial, because when we have one mediator and the direct effect is not significant, it doesn't mean whole effect go through this mediator. There is a possibility to have other mediator, right? But we don't include in our framework. So this is the main reason that the concept of full and partial mediation is not meaningful anymore.
Yes, Prof. Very nicely said. And again, I would say that so many questions you have already addressed because they were very concerned about the Boron and Kenny approach, that they are following it, and we have received a lot of questions related to it. Like, for example, they want to ask that can I conclude mediation if only indirect effect are significant but not the total effect? So you have already explained all
Yes.
these things. Yes. Prof, there is one another very important question that they want to ask is that can I still test for moderated mediation if mediation proved insignificant?
Moderation mediation.
Yes, Prof.
Yeah, moderation mediation. Actually, the okay. I want to answer in the different way.
Yes, please.
We can test moderator even if direct effect is not significant,
Okay.
right? So this
Yeah.
also can be applied for indirect effect. So if
Nice.
direct effect or indirect effect means mediation is not significant, still we can test moderator. Why? Because for direct, I explained for direct effect, so it's the easier to understand. When we have direct effect and direct effect is not significant, means there is a possibility that effect for two levels of moderator, for one is positive and for one level is negative. And when we put two groups together, these two effect, when we plus these two effect, one is positive, one is negative, the result is non-significant. So this effect, these two effects together will be close to zero, so will be insignificant, right? But it means there is moderator that can actually show us difference between effect of IV to DV for two levels of moderator. So for direct and indirect effect, insignificant direct and indirect effect and the mediator, still we can test model.
Yes, Prof. Very nicely said, Prof. We have one another question from Dr. Irfan Salim. He wants to ask that what is the difference between path analysis and serial mediation? Please clarify.
Path analysis and serial mediator.
Yes, Prof.
Actually, path analysis refer to any when we have a direct relationship between IV and DV also can be path analysis, right? So
Yes.
there is nothing with the mediator. When we have a simple mediator also can be path analysis. When we have a serial mediator also can be path analysis. But path analysis most of time refer to it's other name of partial least squares when we have when we apply variance based SEM. So I think there is nothing between path analysis and a serial or simple mediation.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prof. And we have one another question that is, please explain, sir, is it necessary to report model fits in the mediator analysis?
Model fix is actually the fit indices. It's not for mediation and moderation. Fit indices refer to the method that we apply for assessment of model. When we apply covariance based SEM, so we have to report fit indices because covariance based method, we compare covariance matrix between model and between data. So it's critical to report the goodness of fit. But when we apply variance based SEM, variance-based SEM, the strategy is different. In variance-based SEM, we try to maximize R square or explain variance of DV. So there is no comparison between covariance matrix from data and model. So, but still, there are some discussion for reporting fit indices in the concept of variance based, but based on literature is not recommended for variance based SEM approaches. So this actually apply for also mediation and moderation. So it's nothing with mediation and moderation, but they refer to the main approach that we apply. It's covariance based or variance based.
Yes, Prof. Right. Very nicely said, Prof. And due to time limitation, I would say that we have to wrap up because we have already taken a lot of your time, and it's so wonderful explanation. Most of the content has been covered. There is, Prof, one comment, not a question. And the comment is they said that Prof has said one phrase very interestingly, and that was that hypothesizing mediator, the Boren and Kenny approach is very fine, but not for statistical assessment. They like your this phrase, yeah, a lot, Prof. That
I didn't
it's
say I didn't say this statement in this session. Yeah, but in
no, no,
my
yes,
previous
Prof.
video, I mentioned about this because
Exactly.
based on
Because
two
they have
methods.
referred, yes, Prof. Because they have referred that they are following you and they have heard this sentence somewhere and they like your this sentence. So they wanted to convey you that they are following you properly on different platforms.
But let me explain this one. So
Please,
I
please.
am afraid that this make misunderstanding.
Okay.
I
Please,
for
Prof.
the hypothesis development, actually there are two different approaches in the literature: segmentation and transmittal approaches, right? So in these two approach, for transmittal approach, we need to have sequential theory like value, attitude, behavior theory. But for segmentation, actually, we need to support effect of IV to DV, IV to M, and M to DV based on theory. So
Yes.
this is the reason that in my previous video, I explained that we can somehow follow Baron and Kenny, because Baron and Kenny discuss effect of IV to DV, effect of effect of IV to M and M to DV for assessment of mediator. But here we can get this concept to hypothesize mediator based on this segmentation approach, right? So
Yeah.
somehow this can be similar to Baron and Kenny, but not for assessment. Again, not for assessment.
Yes, Prof. Very nicely explained again so that there could not be any misunderstanding regarding this phrase. And I love the way you teaches to different platforms, even in today's session. It was so wonderful, so amazing. And I would like to tell the audience that please follow Dr. Mustafa on YouTube channel because he has a wonderful YouTube channel. I myself follow him and I learn a lot of
Thank
things
you.
from him. Yeah, so that is the wonderful platform, and you are contributing to the world in a very wonderful way. Keep doing it, Dr. Mustafa. We are looking forward for your wonderful videos ahead as well, and we will be inviting you for other sessions. And please, we take our request in your self that please you have to give us time again because we are receiving a lot of requests to have another session, an elaborative session, only the question answer session with the Dr. Mustafa. So inshallah we will be doing it. So in the last we usually ask our guest speaker that please what is your message to the world as teacher, researcher, trainer, learner, professional and educator? Yes, please.
Yeah, it's actually difficult because just I'm also learning. But if I want to say something from a methodological perspective,
Yes.
we have to be when we do some research, we have to be professional in our way, and we need to if we conduct research, we need to stick to robustness in our methodology. So make sure that any methodology, whatever methodology that you apply, so you follow basic and important component of that methodology to produce good quality research.
True. Very nice, wonderful, Prof. And thank you very much for your wonderful presentation, wonderful content, powerful content. I would say that you are our leaders, and we are following you. And may God bless you that you keep on doing such wonderful work, so that our students, upcoming researchers, they could get a lot of benefit from your coming research and articles. We have received the request, Prof. Mostafa, for your papers link as well, that please provide us his paper link so that they could read and they could cite as well. I definitely recommend always your papers to my students, particularly PhD
Thank you.
students, to learn from it, because these are the most recent research work and a lot of efforts behind it. So in the last, what I would say is the role of analysis, and particularly mediation, moderation, and serial mediation. Other is very crucial for analysis perspective, and how do you conclude, and on based on that you have to give implication. So we hope that these wonderful explanation, suggestion, and recommendation will help you in your thesis as well as in your upcoming research work. So that's all. Any concluding remarks you want to give the to the our audience, Dr. Mustafa?
Just want to thank you for providing this opportunity for me to interact with the participant and provide some explanation and tips about mediation and moderation, and hopefully our participant enjoy and benefit from this explanation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much once again, Dr. Mustafa. It was pleasure to have you. It was really interesting, and I could see the comment even on the live chat. They have mentioned it was very informative, and they're requesting for other sessions with you as well. Inshallah, we will request him to have another session with us. And I know that he is super busy, super occupied, and even though he gave us a lot of time to explain so many things, we are so grateful to you, Dr. Mustafa, once again for giving this opportunity for us and for our students, particularly for upcoming researchers, that they learn a lot from you. So that's all we have time for today. Thank you once again, Dr. Mustafa, and I would like to thank our audience who joined us. If you have any additional question about the information shared today, please email to us, or you can directly connect to the speaker through his email and social media. We will provide you the details of Dr. Mustafa and his YouTube channel, which you can learn a lot from him. He is so kind, he is so humble that he will always reply you and he will always guide you. So do contact to him and learn a lot from him. So thank you all for your support and liking our sessions. Stay tuned as many sessions are on the way, and please do not miss any session. So till next session, stay safe, take care of yourself. Bye bye.